Hey guys, it's Believe Gaga, and I am back with episode 1.1 recap of Who is Mr. Robot. Um, if you want to see, move something. If you want to see, my video crushing on Rami Malek, the Q&A that he did on Periscope for fan questions and stuff, and where I called him Papi because he was talking in Spanish. I'll either link those or put the cards throughout the video so you can click on those, and then as well the episode 1.0 Hello Friend recap, the premiere episode. And this is the second episode, episode 1.1, ones and zeros. I messed up. I was writing it on like the third episode, so I was like, no. So I wrote it back on. I had to rewrite it. So let's talk about episode 1.1, ones and zeros. Okay, so it basically starts where the last one left off, like I said, where he walks into the room with Tyrell and all these other people, and he's just like, what? So then it starts off there. Tyrell's talking, I guess, basically, or one of the lawyer people, and it's like, you give a man a gun, he can rob a bank. You give a man a bank, he can rob the world. And then he's like, oh, like funny saying, blah blah blah. And it's just like, I guess, setting up for the, I guess, kind of a setup for the betrayal foreshadowing. And I still trying to figure out like what Tyrell plays, because there is another foreshadowing that comes out of this. And then they're talking about the taking of power and the will to have the taking of power and stuff like that. And it's just like, I guess, a bunch of like barking at like Elliot to like join the dark side, like they say, because they do offer him a position at Evil Corp in cybersecurity and stuff. But then it's like, but you still work with Allsafe, so when we cut them off and blah blah blah, you can work with us. You can be like a multi-millionaire and everything like that. So it's like they're trying to like bribe him with money, and Tyrell's like, well, I'm the CTO and stuff. But then that leads into another episode, which is the next one, I believe, before the new one. So this is gonna be on like a 2-episode delay, because tomorrow is episode 1.4, and I still need to review or recap 1.2 before we get into 1.3, sorry, the 4th episode. Before I get into the 4th episode, 1.3, I still need to recap 1.2, but 1.2 kind of leads into 1.1, which it's all making sense now that I'm rewatching them. So, basically, that is another foreshadowing for the next episode, 1.2. And also, it kind of foreshadows Tyrell's hookup in the next episode, because Tyrell tells Elliot, I want you here with me. And that's very odd, because it's a very, like, intimate saying, and it's very, like, up close and personal. And for someone with social anxiety who has problem dealing with people and, like, getting close to people and, like, the touch and stuff like that, you can kind of see Elliot's discomfort, like they say, and it's kind of just odd, like, the way he, like, is trying to, like, I guess, get on him, like they say. It's like, ooh, boy, you like him like you like what you see. Why don't you come over and check up on it? I'ma let you work up on it, dip it, pop it, work it, stop it, check on me tonight. So, I mean, that also foreshadows, like, a hookup that Tyrell has when something happens that he doesn't like, and he tries to, I guess, do what happens in this episode. And that is with the hoe drama that I'll get into, like they say. So Elliot, like, basically declines, because he's like, well, I'm happy where I am and stuff, and then he just basically leaves and walks out, and Tyrell's just like, well. So, Elise is in the car with the men in black, like they say, and then one of the people there says, oh, well, here's a number if you ever need to get in touch with Tyrell, Mr. whatever his last name is, and the men in black, and they basically, like, drop him off in front of his house, like they say, well, his apartment. And then he sees Shayla with her hoe drama, and she is basically getting groped by the drug guy who supplies the drugs, and you don't really know who he is until later on in the episode. But he's basically like, I need more morphine or something, and then she's like, no, no, no. And then he's like, well, it's like, he's like, I'm deviating off schedule or something, and then she's like, oh, I never thought I'd live to see the day, like they say. And then she's like, okay, I'll give you. And then this is another foreshadowing when she says, you have to promise me. And then he's just like, and then she's like, no, you have to say it out loud, like, you have to promise me. And then that's a foreshadowing in the sense of what happened with the father, which kind of gets more into it at the end of the episode. But she's like, you have to tell me out loud. And maybe these promise foreshadowing is kind of the root of all these problems that Elliot has with his social anxiety and everything like that and stuff. And it's getting really interesting and good, and it's a very, like, it's more chiseling away at Elliot's like wall, I guess, like they say. So that was the foreshadowing of the promise, and then he's talking to us, his friend, because he's like, oh, I haven't forgotten about you, and I believe he's at the computer at this point. And he's hacking Tyrell, and then he's like, oh, his life is too happy, his life is too this, and then there's a picture of Tyrell and a girl, and I don't know if that girl is who we see in the next episode, which I'll get into that later on. And then he's like, wait, he's like, this is too easy, I guess, like they say, and like, he's too happy and stuff, and he's like, did Tyrell let himself get hacked? Did he know that Elliot was gonna go and try and hack him and look into his life? Like, did Tyrell basically let Elliot hack him? Did Tyrell make himself an open target for Elliot? So Elliot freaks out and he tries to destroy the evidence, and he's like microwaving some chips or cards like that, and he's like drilling holes into like his computer or something like that, and like basically trying to get rid of the mess, I guess. So there would be no way to backtrack, if that makes any sense. And then he picks up a picture of his mom and him, which is like a foreshadow for another episode, because I believe in the next episode, the 1.2, you kind of see a little bit more of him and his mom and stuff, and him as a child. But then it also lends back to the previous episode, the premiere, where like his mom seemed to be abusive and stuff, and maybe that's why he has all these problems as well. And then he's basically like really going on that morphine, you know, like he's like morphine plus, like they say. He's just really Lindsay Lohan on that morphine, and Morphine Princess Lady Gaga Marry the Night music video, you know, he just needs that morphine, and he's like, I know, like I'm doing what I said I wouldn't do, or something like that, and he's like, well, he's like, it's an off week and stuff, so I guess like all the drama gets to him, and like his radiator is messed up or something, or like his AC in his apartment, I don't know, he kicked it in the previous episode, I believe, and he still has a problem with it. And then he sees a picture, oh wait, no, I already said that part. Now, Flipper pees on his pillow, and that kind of also lends to like his poor, I guess, social skills and stuff, like how he loves the dog and stuff, like he's becoming attached to the dog, but at the same time it kind of shows that like he still doesn't know how to like care for himself and others, I guess that's what this is trying to say. So then he takes a little sniff of morphine at work. It just like shows him like putting it in something, it's like, and then he like walks into work. So I mean, he's much better than Lindsay Lohan at this, I guess. Then the Colby arrest comes up on like the TV again, and he's just like, oh, like it's all over the place and blah blah blah. But then he's like, what's up with this? He's like, when is Tyrell gonna come back again, and when is like this gonna happen? Like, what's the truth, Oprah? What's the truth, basically? Because it's like Colby is a part of F Society or what? And this is like going back when later on in this episode. So then Gideon gives him a raise. He's like, oh, that's like the best I can do at the moment, and blah blah blah. And then he's like dozing off and stuff. And then he's like, Elliot, and then Elliot's like, what? And then so they see the F Society Evil Corp thing is mentioned because they're threatening like them, and they're saying free Colby. He's our leader and stuff, and the people of the world are gonna like realize that you control them or something, or realize that they can break free or something, like Ariana Grande, I don't know. And then he's like, and donate all your assets to charities around the world and stuff like that. And then he's like, replay, and then it just cuts off to commercial, and then when it comes back, it shows like some guy like, oh, my album dropped, like it only cost you 20 likes or something like that. And don't really know that's like a foreshadow or anything like that. I don't think it is. I think it was just like to open the scene, I guess. And it's Angela and her boyfriend, and then they see Elliot on the street, and he's like, oh yeah, like all safe for evil corpse all over the place because of you, I think. And then he's like distracted, like he's looking over the boyfriend's shoulder and Angela, and he's like, oh no, the men in black are there, you know, basically. So it's like they're still watching him, they're still kind of going after him, I guess, trying to figure out what he's doing. And then he's basically like, oh bye, like my neighbors are complaining about the dog again, so he just like leaves. So he ditches them, basically. Social anxiety problems, I guess. Hashtag see a psychologist. So then it goes into F Society or Colby. Basically, what is life, like they say. I mean, he's really, I guess, contemplating on like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing, and who is Colby, and like what is all this thing happening, and he's basically like questioning everything, and then he's like, you need to think of answers, like they say. And then there's a girl in the shower, and then the dog's like, Flipper's like, who the hell's in the shower? Basically whimpering, and then it's Shayla's twin, so basically Madonna's in the shower. And then he's like, what are you doing here and stuff? How do you know where I live? Blah, blah, blah. And then he leaves Flipper with Shayla because Flipper pooped all over the place. And then she's like, you need to walk the thing. And then he tells Shayla, I think it needs to walk. And she's like, yeah, it's a fucking dog. You need to walk a dog. And stuff. So it goes back to, I guess, the social anxiety problems. I don't know. Elliot's a really interesting character. And I really think Rami Malek is a great actor for this part. I mean, Rami Malek in general, in real life. Sorry, I'm deviating away from the recap. But he does have that, like, awkward, cute, mysteriousness to him, and it really does show in this character and stuff. So I really think this is like the perfect role for him. Like, what's her face? Like a Meryl Streep. That's who Rami Malek is, and who is Mr. Robot. So back to the recap. I left Flipper with Shayla, and he's on the train with Shayla's twin, or Madonna, and she's eating froyo, talking about being proposed to, and he's like, oh, this hoe is crazy. And then they're off the train, and then they get back on the train, like, right away. So like they diss the Men in Black, because when they got on, you see him like on the window like that and stuff, and he's like, did she see them too and stuff, and like, what is this, like, because it's kind of making you wonder, like, is everyone linked together? Like, what's really behind the scenes? Is Elliot still a pawn that's being played, like I said in the first recap? So it's very interesting still. And then he thinks to himself, he's like, sorry, my legs are falling asleep, I've been sitting down. I've been on my knees all day, and I've not been praying. So he's basically like, there's really no, I guess, happy ending. It's either I end up getting killed, or I end up going to jail. So it's just, like, I guess, him contemplating again, like, also when he goes back to Colby and F Society, like, what is the truth here, you know? So then he goes to F Society, and he meets up with some guy who looks like Jack Black. He meets up with Mr. Robot, Malala, and Cosby, and the twin of Shayla, Madonna, basically. So they're all there, and then they're talking about the next phase of the project, and they want to blow up some plant, because he's like, the data storage there is Evil Corp's backups, and he's like, what happens when you want, like, all this stuff you want off the grid destroyed, and blah blah blah, and it's like a gas pipeline that he wants to overload and destroy, but Elliot doesn't want to do it because he's like, I don't want to kill people, but then he's like, well, we have the Black Army, and he's like, why would you have them? They work for anyone. And then Mr. Robot's like, well, maybe they hate American capitalism as much as we do, and like, blah blah blah. So it's probably all like low-key subliminal messages and comments about like what's happening in the real world. Maybe, I don't really know. I mean, I watch The Rich Kids of Beverly Hills and Keeping Up with the Kardashians, so, you know, whatever. Mind controlled already. And then he's talking about some place called Steel Mountain, and then he tells them, are you a 1 or a 0? Basically saying, are you a yes or are you a no? And then he kind of says, he's like, you can leave or you can not leave. It's like, are you going to change the world or not? Basically, like, he tries to, I guess, mess with his mind, mess with his thoughts, mess with his mindset and stuff like that. Thoughts. So he's trying to, like, mess with his mind a little, trying to get into his head. And he kind of already has without, I guess, Elliot really realizing it. At least that's how I'm seeing it, perceiving it. So then, he mentions his father, and that is a foreshadowing from... Was this mentioned in the first episode? Let me see my notes in the first episode. Yeah, they mentioned the dad in the first episode, like I said, when he's like... I don't know what I was talking about, when they're on the train and stuff, and it's like, why are they following me? And then something about the dad, and then I, like, underlined it 1.1 foreshadow. So here's another foreshadowing, because he's like the father and stuff, but they don't really get into it until the end of the episode. So the father is mentioned again, because he's like, something about your dad. And then Elliot's just like, the fuck, basically. So his father is mentioned a couple of times, and like I keep saying, maybe that's somewhat of the reason why he has social anxiety and stuff like this, and it's kind of lending to that promise foreshadow that I mentioned in the beginning with Shayla. So, I mean, this show is very interesting the way it's playing together. It's like everything's far apart, but at the end, like I say, 180, 360, it's all coming back together. Kind of ends up back in step one. That's why I say, is he basically a pawn that's being played? And then he's basically like, well, what do I do? You know, like, he just, what do I do? You know, I don't know what to do, and he just leaves, and the girl's like, oh, you're a part of it. Either way, whether you leave or not, you know, Madonna, Shayla's twin. And then he just walks back home, basically, and then he sees the creep, which we later find out is Fernando Vera, which is the drug dealer, or the drug supplier. And Shayla's just having hoe drama, you know. They're groping Shayla and stuff, and he's walking, he's like watching Fernando drive away and stuff, and then you see that that's also foreshadowing that I guess the way they saw each other is like they're gonna meet up again, you know, like that eye-to-eye contact. And where am I? Sorry. Then he talks about how the drug supplier has a Twitter and stuff because he goes to, I guess, check up on Shayla, and he is knocking on the door. He's like, Shayla, and then the drug supplier is there. Sorry, I messed up, and I don't edit these videos. So basically, the creep from the hoe drama that I had mentioned already, sorry, Fernando Vera, is in the same room while he's knocking on the door of Shayla. And then he starts talking about how he's a drug supplier, and then how he tweets, and how his code is like, biscuits and clickets are guns, and how he times his tweets to like do, I guess, a run or stuff like that. He's like, how haven't the police caught him already with this like not even good codes and stuff like that, code words. And then shells and other stuff are bullets. But then this is where he's deciding that he needs the drugs. Or does he need the drugs? And maybe this is a part where Elliot's kind of getting clean, but honestly not really, because in the next episode, I guess, it just ends up right back in the same place, like I say. And he kind of has like a heart-to-heart with Fernando, the drug creeper guy, and he's talking about depression and suicide, and oh, I know how it feels and stuff like that. And then he's like, I tried to kill myself, but I could never get it right. And he's like, I guess biology wasn't my strong suit, because he has like all these scars. And I'm like, honey, if you want to kill yourself, if you want to cut yourself 101, you go down the river, not across the lake. So Fernando is going across the lake and not down the river, so that's why he couldn't kill himself. Like, you have one job, kill yourself, do it. If you can't do it, why are you even alive still, and why can't you kill yourself? At least find a sure shot way. I mean, just shoot yourself in the head. I mean, that's just my 2 cents. Then he touches Elliot, and then, like I said in the first episode, Elliot has like a thing where, like, when people touch him, he's like, don't touch me, you know, because he has that social anxiety problem, psychological dilemma in his little mind that he just doesn't like touch, he doesn't like interaction, he can't deal with people and stuff like that. So it's very interesting when, like, the drug guy touches him after having that little heart-to-heart, like they say. So then he's talking about friends and blah blah blah, and it's like, basically, we find out here that Shayla is Fernando's hoe, because after Fernando said, oh yeah, like, you and I were friends, like, we were meant to be, and like, he's like, basically, like, I'm an Aries and you're this, and we were meant, like, the stars aligned for us, and you know what, Brittany, like, we're really good friends right now, and this is meant to happen, this is all destiny, let's go get our Frappuccino. That's foreshadowing for another episode, Frappuccino, but it's latte. So basically, Shayla's Fernando's hoe, because he's like, yeah, I don't know what you had with that girl, but now she's mine, I don't know what I'd do without that girl and stuff. And you can tell Elliot's a little, like, because he keeps looking at him weird, and you can tell Elliot's a little bit uncomfortable with that, and he doesn't like that. So I guess that's where he's going to decide to be a one or his hero with Fernando. So that's that. And then he leaves and stuff, and he leaves with the drugs, and then he finds Shayla passed out in the tub, like Whitney Houston, except luckily she wasn't dead and she wasn't face down. And I mean, God bless Bobby Christina, but this is probably about Bobby Christina. And then basically when she's like, oh, why am I in the tub and stuff, because before that Fernando was like, yeah, she's okay, leave her, like, I took care of that myself. So when he finds her in the tub, and then Shayla's like, why am I in the tub? Does that mean she was like date raped or slept and then raped, or was she sexually assaulted like Kesha and Dr. Luke? We can only wonder, but I mean, obviously she was like sexually assaulted or something like that, Shayla, so poor Shayla. And then he even mentions it when he has to choose, like they say, and that's a foreshadowing, there has a choice of 1 or 0, when Shayla's like, yeah, can you sleep over for the night? And then he does, so he does that, and then he's on his computer, and he's like deciding not to, I guess, turn in Fernando, basically. And it's like, if he does, he's like, the drugs are gone, all the pain he holds back will just come rushing in and stuff. And he's like, is he ready to deal with that? Is Elliot ready to deal with, like, his inner demons, like they say? And he's trying to decide that for himself, if he's ready to deal with that with himself. But he basically turns in Fernando, and that's basically by deleting him from his life, because that's his decision when he's like in the park and he's like, well, he made his choice after groping Angela and raping her, so he leaves me like with Angela with no choice but, and it just cuts off to commercial and stuff like that. But you basically know that he's gonna get rid of Fernando. And then he meets with the psychologist and stuff, and then he's like, oh, I'm not feeling good about everything, and then it's like control, basically. That's his problem. And he's like, sorry, I'm moving again. He's like, basically, I feel like I have no control over stuff and everything like that. And he's like, but do we truly ever have control? He's like, or do we make the best of what you can? And like what's, I guess, thrown at you, and it gets really deep from here, you know, like some kind of, I guess, statement, metaphor, allusion, or whatever to whatever the real world has for us and our decisions, like they say. And he's talking about choices and whatever, and then it's like the anonymous arrest of Fernando Vera, the drug dealer, while he's talking about that. And then he's like, do choices matter, and what's the difference? He gets into like McDonald's or Burger King, Coke or Pepsi, Hyundai or Honda, Blue Cross, Blue Shield. He's like, isn't it all like the freaking same and stuff like that? He's basically like, what's the difference? And then he's like, wow, all these choices were made for us a long time ago. So could that be another foreshadow? Could that be another like allusion or something to something else that we missed in the episode? Leave comments below if you think that has something to do with like these choices. Because it basically seems like everything like this is like choices, and it's a whole like domino effect of if he chooses one thing or if he chooses another thing, or which side he chooses to go to, or will he just end up in the middle of everything? So leave comments on what you think for this episode. And then he's like, oh, I was like a part of a special project. And he's like, nope, it was just a mistake. He's like, I thought I was going to be part of something big and something helpful and stuff. And he's like, no, it was a mistake, you know, because like he doesn't want to kill people. But I mean, that's, I guess, part of the project for Mr. Robot. And then he's like, well, might as well just do nothing or whatever. And then there's another father foreshadow, because it's like, your father had no choice. And that's what the psychologist is telling him. Like, your father had no choice, and he decided not to act, and blah blah blah, and everything like that. And then Elliot, like, before it gets into the father part at the end of this episode, he's kind of like, I guess he can't cope with the reality of it. And then it's basically, his father had leukemia and stuff, and he had the choice to get help and do this and do that, but he didn't. And you get more into it when he talks to Mr. Robot about it. So then he's just like, well, he did nothing, and you can't deal with your choices or whatever, and blah blah blah. And then he yells. He yells at the psychologist, and it's like, is that maybe some part of withdrawals now that he's turned in Vera, and how long maybe it's been since he's seen the psychologist, and the time frame of all that Fernando Vera drug dealer stuff happening, and him getting his morphines and stuff, because he was going over and whatever. But who knows how it's happening right now? Basically, he yells at the psychologist and stuff, so could that be a sign of withdrawal? I don't know. So then Angela calls him, and he doesn't answer and stuff, and it shows that the boyfriend is basically cheating on Angela with some emails to this one random hoe online. He was like, oh, you need to see my pictures, and blah blah blah, and then he's like, oh yeah, like he's not really paying attention to Angela talking, because she's like, oh, I want to go check up on Elliot, you know, and then he's like, no, Elliot's like a weirdo, like he's okay, he's fine, leave him be, let him be. But, I mean, if I wanted to check up on Elliot, I'd do more than just check up on Rami Malek, you know? You can see that video where I'm crushing on Rami Malek. And, he's basically cheating on her with some hoe online, but could that be a ploy? Because, as we find out, there is a spy on the webcam looking at Angela and him, so it's like, huh. And then it says, we're in like, Chinese, so it's like, and then, well, I say Chinese, but it looks like Asian language, you know, Chinese, Japanese, Dirty-Mise, whatever. But when they mentioned at the F Society, Mr. Robot mentioned the Black Army is like, well, they work for the Koreans, and they work for this, like, they work for whatever and stuff. When they mention Koreans, I'm like, is this the Black Army that's, you know, on the webcam trying to do something? Because the boyfriend was like, every time I put in this disc, like, it just freezes my computer and spits it out, and blah, 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 and everything like that, so... Is this the Black Army? What is Elliot's friends getting into? What's going on here, you know? Is this like another one of the same escort deals as the psychologist's boyfriend from the first episode or something like that he gets caught and stuff? Who knows, in episode 1.2, so we'll get to that episode after I watch it and recap that one, because 1.3 is going to come out tomorrow night, and I'm excited to keep up, but I gotta watch 1.2 again and then get into 1.3, because I know I'll forget stuff. But back to the recap. So he's talking with Mr. Robot at Coney Island on like some rails and stuff, and then he's like, when you walked away and stuff, and he's like, you're not a part of it, and it's just like a bunch of drama and stuff, and then he's like, oh, I thought you didn't believe in depths, Mr. Robot, and then he's like, Elliot, he's like, I believe in some depths and stuff, and then he's just like, what do you want to know and stuff, and he's like, I want to know about your father, and Elliot's basically like, you're not gonna get mess with me and get into my head and stuff, but little do we know, is he already in Mr. Robot's head, because Elliot's like, since he's like, I guess problematic in the sense of like, he's sick, and he has a social anxiety and disorder, is he already messing with him? Is he already in his head? Did he already worm a little virus Trojan into his head? I don't know. And then, so he talks about his dad, and his dad, as we find out, was a computer engineer at Evil Corp, and he got fired out of the blue, and like I said, he had leukemia. And here's where the promise foreshadow from Shayla in the beginning of the episode comes out, where the father promised, or has Elliot promise to him that, don't tell anyone that I have leukemia and stuff, but then he's getting sick. He's getting really sick, so I guess Elliot's like, well, no, I'm going to try to help Dad, like they say, and he was only 8 years old, so, oh, how traumatic that must be for a child. I mean, your mom's abusing you, as I'm saying, and then your dad just dies on you, you know, just, oh, Lord, I don't even think the Salvation Army can help Elliot here, but, basically says that his dad would just shove him away, and then one time he broke his arm because his dad pushed him and he fell out the window and stuff. And there was no interaction even until the day he died, that his father died. Well, the day that Elliot's father died, they didn't look each other eye to eye and stuff, and it's like, I guess the dad had like a resentment against Elliot because he promised him, but then it's like, it's weird when I say the foreshadowing shit. I got cut off, but we left off on the promise part, and I said it's weird in the sense of that foreshadowing of the promise, because at Shayla, he didn't really promise out loud when Shayla was like, it really means something, like, I take those to heart. Maybe that's what the dad thought, and maybe that's where the resentment's coming in, maybe that's where, like, the denial comes in with Elliot, and the social anxiety problems and everything like that, and everything else that he dealt with his family, and blah blah blah, and the drugs and morphine and everything like that, so it's just one big screwed up family, you know? It's just, I don't know. And then Mr. Robot touches him, and as, like I said, we all know Elliot doesn't like to be touched because he has, like, social anxiety disorders and stuff like that, so he touches him, and he's, like, rubbing his back, and he's like, oh, well, I know what it's like to lose a parent, and then he's like, but did you betray him? Did you betray his trust? And then he's like, was it right to hurt him, basically? And then Elliot's like, I didn't do anything, I was only 8 years old, I tried to help him and stuff, but he's like, you betrayed his trust, you know? Maybe that's how he's worming his way into Elliot's head, so it's very, like, I guess he's trying to break Elliot, try to get to Elliot's surface without him even realizing it, and we'll find that later in the next episode's title and stuff like that, and where he starts talking about it and everything like that. It all makes sense where he's trying to get into his mind and stuff, you know, he's trying to, like, decode him, but it's debugging him, so, you know, when I get into the next recap, we'll see. And then he basically pushes him off the rails or the ledge. Mr. Robot pushes Elliot off the rails or the ledge, and the episode ends there. So that was to recap on episode 1.1, ones and zeros, and basically it was about choices and decisions and the effects they have on people. Like I said, domino effect, I believe, in this recap or the previous recap if you want to see them. And like I said, leave comments below and stuff. I'm really interested in seeing what you people have to say about us, say other fans, your fans, but I'm like, oh, I'm talking to myself. But I really want to see what you people think about these episodes. Do you like Who is Mr. Robot? Is it really intriguing? I'm liking it. It really does seem like a long movie to me, and I've been binge watching it ever since, and I'll probably try to recap episode 1.2 before episode 1.3 comes out, or maybe I'll just do it tonight, because, I mean, I've been watching them, so might as well, you know, but we'll see if I recap episode 1.2, or if not, I just wait for 1.3 and then recap 1.2, 1.3, I don't know what I'm doing. But like I said, leave comments below on what you think, how the episodes are going, and blah blah blah, and tell me, and I guess until next time, I want to say to hi to Rami Malek, And comment, rate, share, subscribe, and stay safe, God bless, and I'll come back with a review or something. And if you want to see my episode crushing on Rami Malek and the Q&A that he did on Periscope with the fans, including me, where I called him Papi and stuff, and he responded to my questions, I'll try to link those, or like I said, put them in a card somewhere, like that you can click on the screen or whatever like that. So, hi Rami Malek, if you ever see this, your bae, and tell me your thoughts on Who is Mr. Robot, and tell me all these episode theories and stuff, because I don't have Tumblr and stuff, I just have Twitter and Instagram and, you know, here on YouTube. But I'm really liking Who is Mr. Robot, and like the really mysterious qualities of it, and like I said, Rami Malek is really good. He's like Meryl Streep for this role and stuff, so I'm really hoping he gets like success, and this wins, I think, an Emmy. Are those like the TV show awards, an Emmy or something, Golden Globe, I don't know. I really hope it wins an award, because it's a really good show, and it's blowing up. It's really blowing up, and I wish I could give Rami Malek more than just a hug, if you know where I'm going with that. And I don't know, the cast is amazing and stuff like this. Just the storyline is very like weird. It's like a web, like everything's like spreading, but everything comes back to a center and stuff. And I'm just really intrigued with this, and it's really scary with like the hacking thing and everything, because it's very like, it's very relevant. It's very now. It's happening. You're in that very social media world. I mean, look at you guys. You're looking at me on YouTube. But like I said, leave your comments and thoughts in the comment section and everything, and talk to me and everything like that, because I'm really liking these episodes. So, hi Rami Malek, and like I said, comment, rate, share, subscribe, everything like that. So, bye you guys, stay safe, and God bless.